This is not a story about a monster. It's a story about a mistake. The kind of mistake evolution almost never makes. For more than 160 million years, dinosaurs rose, ruled, and disappeared. Entire dynasties came and went, each one testing a different idea about how to survive. And then, right at the very end, after almost every experiment the planet could try, something appeared that broke the pattern entirely. An animal with a head too heavy for its body, arms too small to matter, a bite that could crush bone like gravel. It shouldn't have worked, and yet, for 2 million years, nothing could stop it. And this is the true story of Tyrannosaurus Rex. Not the movie monster, but the actual animal. Where it came from, how it was built, and why almost everything you think you know about it is wrong. Let's start at the beginning, because to understand this animal, you first have to understand how we know it existed at all. No living person has ever seen a dinosaur breathe, walk, or hunt. Everything we know starts with stone. And for a long time, that stone told us very little. When the first dinosaur fossils were uncovered in the early 1800s, scientists had almost nothing to work with. A tooth here, a bone fragment there. They filled in the gaps with imagination, and the imagination was strange. Early dinosaurs were drawn as oversized, sprawling lizards, slow, dim, and monstrous rather than animal. It wasn't foolishness, it was the honest limit of the evidence at the time. As the decades passed, more fossils surfaced, full skeletons, trackways in ancient mud, bone structures that hinted at posture, speed, even metabolism. Each discovery forced scientists to redraw these animals again and again. Today, paleontology is one of the richest historical sciences on Earth. More than 10,000 dinosaur fossils have been unearthed, over 900 distinct species identified, and on average, researchers name roughly 45 new species every single year. That's not because dinosaurs are multiplying. It's because the Earth is still giving up its secrets, slowly, reluctantly, layer by layer. And to understand the last of these giants, we have to go back far deeper than its bones. We have to go back to a version of Earth that had no separate continents at all, a single vast supercontinent called Pangaea, a world of deserts, seasonal monsoons, and violent volcanic upheaval. The oldest known dinosaurs appear near the end of the Triassic period, around 230 million years ago, and they were nothing like what came later. Small, lightweight, easily overshadowed by other reptiles competing for the same ground. The Triassic world was hot, unstable, and dangerous. A planet still recovering from mass extinction, where evolution was experimenting rapidly and violently. Then, around 200 million years ago, the Earth changed again. Massive volcanic eruptions tore through what is now the Atlantic. Many of the dominant reptiles vanished, and dinosaurs, almost by accident, inherited the planet. This was the beginning of the Jurassic, a greener, wetter world where dinosaurs grew larger, bolder, and more specialized. Thanks largely to Hollywood, this is the era most people picture when they hear the word dinosaur. But here's the truth most people never hear. The Jurassic wasn't the peak of the dinosaur age. It wasn't even close. The real explosion, the era of maximum size, diversity, and dominance, came later, in the Cretaceous. Beginning around 145 million years ago, the Cretaceous was the longest chapter in dinosaur history. The old supercontinents fractured apart, new coastlines formed, and shallow seas pushed deep into the land. Flowering plants spread across the planet for the first time. Insects diversified alongside them, and entire food webs rebuilt themselves from the ground up. Wendes others Torgius steporid predis. And near the very end of this long, crowded era, something extraordinary finally appeared: Tyrannosaurus Rex. Despite its fame, it was a late arrival, living only in the final stretch of the Cretaceous, roughly 68 to 66 million years ago. Its reign was short, but it was intense. Till most scientists agree Rex never crossed paths with the Jurassic dinosaurs at all, which makes one detail quietly ironic. Every dinosaur film that shows different eras hunting side by side is compressing tens of millions of years into a single afternoon. Once you see it that way, it's hard to unsee. The dinosaur world was never one golden age. It was many, rising, falling, transforming across 165 million years. T-Rex stood at the very edge of it all. Not at the beginning of the story, but just before the end. So where exactly did T-Rex live? Not across the whole planet. Its world was surprisingly small. A shallow inland sea ran from the Arctic to the Gulf of Mexico, cutting North America into two separate land masses. The western half became an island continent scientists now call La Remedia. This, and as far as we know, only this, is where Tyrannosaurus Rex lived. Most T-Rex fossils come from a stretch of rock called the Hell Creek Formation, running through Montana, the Dakotas, and Wyoming. When paleontologists dig here, they're not just finding one animal, they're uncovering an entire lost world. And that world looked nothing like the dry badlands we find it in today. Average temperatures sat several degrees warmer than now. Rainfall was abundant, and grass hadn't evolved yet. Instead, the ground was carpeted in ferns beneath a mix of conifers and early flowering trees. This land was crowded. Triceratops was everywhere. In some fossil beds, these three-horned giants made up nearly 40% of all large animals found. Herds of Edmontosaurus, the duck-billed dinosaur, moved in numbers so large they likely shook the ground beneath them. An easy target if a predator could ever catch one. Ankylosaurus patrolled the underbrush too. Low, armored, built like a living tank, with a tail club capable of shattering bone. Not an easy meal for anyone. Smaller dinosaurs filled every gap in between. Dome-headed Pachycephalosaurus, modest plant-eaters like Thescelosaurus, quick-feathered raptors rarely big enough to earn screen time in films, and beneath all of them, mammals. Small, furry, mostly nocturnal, staying carefully out of sight. Their time was coming, just not yet. In the rivers, crocodilians lurked, turtles basked, and fish moved through waters that eventually connected to the great inland sea. This was the Hell Creek ecosystem, dense, diverse, and fully alive, and standing at the very top of it stood Tyrannosaurus Rex. Fossil surveys suggest it made up nearly a quarter of all large predator remains found in these deposits. That's a remarkable number. It tells us this animal wasn't a rare sighting glimpsed once in a generation. It was an established, dominant part of this world. Let's look at the animal itself, and we should start with the obvious. T-Rex was enormous. A fully grown adult stretched around 40 feet from snout to tail, roughly the length of a city bus, weighing somewhere between 6 and 7 tons. But plenty of dinosaurs were big. What made T-Rex different was how every part of its body worked together toward one single purpose. Start with the skull, over 5 feet long in the largest specimens, and not just big, but engineered. Thick, reinforced bone distributed enormous stress across the jaw joints. Its teeth weren't thin cutting blades like most predators of its time. They were thick and conical, almost like railroad spikes built not just to slice, but to punch straight through. Computer models estimate its bite could generate somewhere between 35,000 and 57,000 newtons of force. A saltwater crocodile, one of the strongest biters alive today, tops out around 16,000. T-Rex was operating in an entirely different category. This wasn't just a killer. It was a bone crusher. Fossils have been found with T-Rex tooth marks punched clean through solid bone, and fossilized droppings containing digested bone fragments prove it swallowed the skeleton along with everything else. One famous movie scene convinced audiences that T-Rex's eyesight was based on movement, and that staying still would keep you safe. It's completely wrong. CT scans of its skull reveal massive olfactory bulbs. The smell processing region of the brain was enormous. This animal could likely track prey from a considerable distance before ever laying eyes on it, and its eyes faced forward, not to the sides like most reptiles, forward like a predator built to judge distance. That overlap between its left and right fields of vision gave it true binocular depth perception. Studies suggest its visual sharpness may have rivaled that of an eagle. If you stood motionless in front of a T-Rex, it wouldn't just notice you, it would see you with startling clarity. Its hearing was just as sharp, tuned to low-frequency vibrations, the kind produced by footsteps or a herd moving through distant trees. Its brain was roughly twice the size of other giant carnivores, not because it was solving puzzles, but because processing this much sensory information demands serious neural real estate. This wasn't a mindless brute stumbling through fog. This was an animal built to find you, and that iconic roar everyone imagines, almost certainly fictional. T-Rex had no larynx. Its closest living relatives, birds and crocodilians, produced deep, booming calls through air sacs instead. If it made any sound at all, you likely wouldn't hear it first. You'd feel it in your chest, from hundreds of meters away. Then there are the arms, yes, absurdly short for its body size. But the bones tell a different story. The attachment points show remarkably powerful muscles. Each arm could likely curl more than 200 kilograms. Those claws were thick and curved, functional tools, not decoration. T-Rex couldn't reach its own mouth with them, but in close combat with struggling prey, those arms could grip, slash, and hold on. More likely, the arms shrank simply because they weren't needed anymore. As the skull evolved into a bone-crushing weapon, the arms were freed from the jobs earlier predators once relied on them for. One more myth worth clearing up the skin. Early tyrannosaur ancestors, much smaller animals, had feathers, and we have fossil proof of it. But skin impressions from T-Rex's closest relatives show something different. Pebbly, reptilian scales, the adults at least weren't fluffy. They were armored, of every T-Rex skeleton ever discovered. One stands above the rest. Her name is Sue, unearthed in South Dakota in 1990, and roughly 90% complete. The most perfect T-Rex skeleton ever recovered. Sue now stands in the Field Museum in Chicago, where millions of visitors have stood beneath her reconstructed frame. But her bones tell a harder story than the display case suggests. Her skeleton shows evidence of healed injuries, bite wounds on the skull that mended over time, ribs that fractured and knit back together, tail vertebra fused after trauma. She survived attacks, infections, and quite possibly gout. This was a violent life, and her body kept an exact record of it. When we look at Sue, we're not just looking at a skeleton. We're looking at the accumulated damage of a life spent at the very top of the food chain. And that's the part cinema almost always leaves out. We picture T-Rex alone, framed against an empty horizon. But it never lived that way. It lived here in this wet, green, crowded world, surrounded by prey, surrounded by competition, surrounded by life that had been evolving alongside it for millions of years. This was the kingdom it inherited, and it wouldn't last much longer. Here's something most people never think about. When you stand beneath a T-Rex skeleton in a museum, you're not actually looking at one complete animal. What you're seeing is mostly reconstruction. Paleontologists almost never find a full skeleton, usually a skull, some vertebrae, a rib cage, a scattered puzzle with pieces missing. The very first T-Rex mounted for public display was uncovered in Montana back in 1908. The skull, most of the tail, a rib cage, and most of the vertebrae. Everything else had to be invented. Science hasn't always gotten this right. For decades, museums displayed the wrong skull mounted on an Apatosaurus body, calling it Brontosaurus. An error that stood uncorrected for years. Today, the process is far more precise. Scientists combine data from multiple individuals to build a composite picture, using CT scans to digitally mirror bones, If they have a left leg, they can flip it to generate an accurate right one. Modern dinosaur exhibits are remarkably accurate, but they're still assemblies, still fragments stitched into wholeness. So why piece skeletons together at all, instead of simply displaying what was actually found? The answer has nothing to do with science. It has to do with who we are. Humans are storytelling animals. We don't experience the world as disconnected facts. We experience it as narrative, with a beginning, a middle, an end. Standing before a reconstructed T-Rex, we're not just viewing a discovery, we're meeting something. But there's an uncomfortable side to this story. As of today, roughly 60 scientifically significant T-Rex specimens sit in public museums, while more than 70 remain in private hands. The commercial fossil trade changed forever in 1997, when Sue sold at auction for $836 million. The Field Museum won the bid. She became a scientific symbol, but she also became a price tag. In 2020, one of the most complete T-Rex specimens ever found, nicknamed Stan, sold for $31.8 million. No museum could compete with that bid. For over a year afterward, nobody knew where the fossil even was. One of the most scientifically valuable fossils on Earth had simply disappeared into private ownership. The average T-Rex now sells for around $10.8 million, a price most public institutions simply cannot match. Every skeleton carries information that can never be replicated: bone microstructure, chemical isotope signatures, evidence of disease and behavior. Once a fossil disappears into a private vault, that data becomes permanently inaccessible. Science depends on shared access to evidence. A T-Rex sitting in a billionaire's foyer might as well still be buried in the ground. The loss is especially painful for juvenile specimens, the part of the T-Rex life cycle scientists understand the least, and the part most aggressively pulled out of the ground by private collectors. Commercial collectors often argue they're rescuing fossils from erosion, and there's a grain of truth to that. But of roughly 80 specimens gathered commercially in recent decades, only a small handful have ever ended up in public trust. Once they leave, they rarely come back. We treat human heritage as something that belongs to everyone. Somehow, dinosaur heritage is still up for auction. Every part of this story has been stitched together from the work of paleontologists who spent lifetimes in the dust, asking questions most of us never think to ask. They uncovered the fragments. They ran the scans. They built the models. All of it, just to try to make the bones breathe again. And every time a fossil disappears into a private collection, a piece of that story is lost. A chapter quietly ripped out of a book that should belong to everyone. Because when a child stands beneath a mounted T-Rex, craning their neck, trying to understand the scale of the thing, something happens that can't really be measured. A connection forms between that child and an animal that died 66 million years ago, between the present and a past so deep it's almost impossible to imagine. T-Rex wasn't a beginning. It wasn't a symbol of progress. It was an ending, the final, impossible predator of a world that was already running out of time. Nothing about Tyrannosaurus Rex was normal, and that might be exactly why, 66 million years later, we still can't stop looking up at it. An animal with a smell-based brain built like a bloodhound's, a bite strong enough to eat bone, arms too small to matter, and a skull too heavy to make sense, until you understand exactly what it traded away to get it. This was never a mindless monster. It was a masterpiece of specialization, built by a planet that was running out of time to build anything else. So here's a question for you. Out of everything we just covered, the smell, the bite force, the fake roar, the tiny arms with the surprisingly strong grip, what surprised you the most? Drop your answer in the comments below. I read every single one, and I'll pin my favorites. And if you want more deep dives into the strangest, deadliest, and most misunderstood animals to ever walk this planet, make sure you're subscribed. because this is only the beginning. If this video changed the way you think about T-Rex, a like genuinely helps this reach more people who'd enjoy it too. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.